I'd like to thank my board, our generous donors, and my starter wife for putting up with me. He said it into the gold-lit skyline like he was reading off a joke card. Laughter popped around the rooftop like cheap fireworks, tight, polite, relieved to be laughing at someone who wasn't them. I stood there with a champagne flute I suddenly couldn't feel, a smile stapled to my face so hard my cheeks trembled. It was my 33rd birthday. The string quartet didn't miss a note. The lights on the river kept moving like none of it mattered. Nolan loved a stage. Tonight's was the Glass House, a rooftop box of light with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view so expensive you could taste it. The event was his, a Tech for Good fundraiser to celebrate his venture fund's new social impact arm. He practiced the word impact the way some men practice golf swings, until it sounded like a weapon. "Come on, Lena," he murmured near my ear, the grin never leaving his face. "Don't be so sensitive." Then, louder, "For the tables, she's a community college writing instructor, which means she believes in the future even more than I do." He didn't look at me when he said it. He looked at the donors. 2 hours earlier I was in our bathroom, smoothing a thrifted silk dress the color of dark honey, fixing a strand of hair that always refused to play along. The bathroom was a museum of Nolan's serums. Labels lined up like soldiers. My corner, a drugstore moisturizer and a chipped ring dish shaped like a shell. I'd told myself the dress was quietly beautiful, even when the stylist his mother recommended sniffed, "Pretty, if you're attending a brunch." Nolan hadn't noticed the dress. He'd noticed the earrings. "Those again?" he said, the way someone might say, "Still chewing with your mouth open?" They were my mother's, tiny opals that caught the light like they had secrets. "We're late," he added, already scrolling through a deck on his phone. "Smile tonight. These people are doing us a favor." At the elevator I hesitated. "Us or you?" He didn't answer. He never answered questions that weren't useful. "I teach first-year comp at Roosevelt Community College. Daylight life, marked up essays smelling faintly of cafeteria pizza, students who argue about semicolons and keep writing anyway, the secretary who keeps peppermint tea in an old Folgers tin. I come home with ink-smudged fingers and sticky notes in my pockets that say things like try a stronger verb, and you're not failing, you're learning." In that life, my opinions land somewhere. In Nolan's life, polished wood, glass, soft-handed handshakes, they evaporated before crossing the room. He arranged the seating chart himself. I know because he left the spreadsheet open on the kitchen island with a note, "Do not move names." My place card at the fundraiser read Elena Carter Pierce, then below that, in tasteful serif, Roosevelt CC. Nolan's card simply said Nolan Pierce, founder and managing partner. The woman beside me, blonde, Prada, a non-profit board chair, skimmed my line and said, "Courageous," like I'd admitted to dumpster diving. I could never do that job. I almost asked which part, the students with 3 jobs, the adjunct who shares a locker with a mop, or the essays that crack your heart so clean you think you're breathing new air. Instead I said, "It's the best thing I've ever done." Her smile twitched. She turned to ask Nolan about his cap table. The night moved like a script I hadn't memorized. Nolan held court. I hovered like punctuation. He'd pinch my elbow when he wanted me to laugh. I laughed on cue. He'd angle his body so donors faced him, not me. When a waiter spilled a dot of sauce on his cuff, Nolan didn't look at the kid, just lifted his arm and made a face to the table, the kind that says, "Can you believe?" The kid flushed beet red. I pressed a napkin into his shaking hand, whispering, "It's fine," even though the napkin wasn't what he needed. Then Nolan gave the toast. "Starter wife," he said like it was charming, like I was an appetizer before his main course life. He clinked his glass, people clinked back. Someone, one of his partners, called, "Upgrade soon," and the table nearest us laughed so hard one of the candles guttered. My name card looked suddenly like a label on a museum artifact, the first attempt. I pictured my students' faces. Jamal's careful questions. Rena's peeling blue nail polish and essays in perfect, slanted handwriting. I pictured them hearing this and learning all the wrong lessons. I set my glass down. The event manager, a woman with a clipboard and sympathy in her eyes, appeared at my elbow. "Mrs. Pierce? Apologies, they're asking to run the remaining balance for the AV and the tent rental. The card we have on file is yours." On file. Of course it was. Nolan's game, charge the glamorous 50% to the fund's corporate card, shove the unglamorous balance, miscellaneous, to me. "You have the better points," he'd told me once, not looking up. "How much?" I asked, keeping my voice low. She showed me the tablet. I had to blink twice before the number resolved. 8,000, change. I stared at the little opal in my left ear in the dark reflection of the window and thought about the day I changed my name. Nolan wanted a tidy hyphen. It makes us sound like a unit. I said yes because in those early days I said yes to a lot of tidy things that looked like love. Run it, I told the manager. My emergency card would scream, but it wouldn't die. Nolan popped back to my side, lips still parted for applause. You okay? He asked, all performance warmth. Without waiting for an answer, he squeezed my shoulder in a touch that looked like a husband and felt like a warning. By the way, he added quietly, try not to mention your salary when people ask. It's distracting. A laugh bubbled up from somewhere that surprised me. From what? I asked. Reality? His jaw flexed. Don't start. I looked at his reflection instead of his face. In the glass he was composed, haloed by the city, exactly as he wanted to be seen. Behind him, near the bar, was a woman I'd met once in the office kitchen, a PR contractor named Harper with clever eyes and a freckle by her mouth. She smiled at Nolan the way people smile at a man who wins. He smiled back with a softness I hadn't seen aimed at me in months. I felt something settle in my chest. Not a crack. A click. I excused myself to the hallway that ran behind the bar where the servers queued with trays and the air smelled like lemon and nerves. The event manager stood there, rubbing her temple with 2 fingers. If it helps, she said, not looking at me, I've seen worse. It doesn't, I said honestly. She nodded. Your zip code for the card was wrong, she added. Want to double check? We can split the charge. There, on her screen, was my name. And below it, the contact for billing/emergencies, a number I didn't recognize, until I did. It wasn't mine. It was Nolan's assistant's cell. I took a breath that didn't quite get to the bottom of my lungs. Could I see the vendor sheet? I asked, keeping my tone casual. Teacher in need of form, nothing to see here. I'm a compulsive checker. If anyone's 1099 gets messed up, I'll hear about it at dinner for the rest of my life. She hesitated, then handed me the clipboard. Don't tell my boss. The sheet was a map. Names, emails, the AV guy Nolan lowballed last week, the florist who'd upgraded Nolan to peonies, not ranunculus, the tent company, the photo booth vendor, and, at the bottom, a line that jumped like a pulse, consulting, Storycraft PR, H. Wilder, Harper. Same number as the emergency contact. Consulting fee, $6,500. Memo, messaging rehearsal plus crisis prep. Crisis prep. I took a photo with my phone. Then another of the seating plan on the next page, handwritten in Nolan's block caps. Asterisks by donors who needed attention. A star beside my name with a note, keep close but not too close. When I came back to the table, Nolan was mid-story about sleeping under his desk in the early days. He had never once slept under a desk. He had, however, slept through the sound of me crying in the shower, twice. I touched the opal again, like it could calibrate my compass. It did. Excuse me, I said, and my voice didn't shake. I'm leaving. Nolan's smile froze. Lena, starter wives need beauty sleep, I said lightly, and placed my napkin on my chair. Outside, the night air was cooler than it looked from the glass wall. I walked past the valet line, heels clicking a steady metronome I hadn't heard in myself in a while. On the corner, a busker played a violin so clean it made the city sound honest. I texted one person, Maya from my department. Not glamorous, not capital C connected, but a quiet storm. Husband's a forensic IT guy. Loves a puzzle. Are you awake? I wrote. Her bubbles appeared immediately. Always. What happened? I stared back at the box of light where my husband was a hero. Do you know anyone who can tell me what crisis prep means on a PR invoice? I typed. And how to make a copy of a cloud without anyone noticing? The violin slid into a minor key. For the first time that night, I smiled like it belonged to me. At 6:11 a.m., I was on a video call with Maya's husband while my coffee went cold and the city outside my window scraped itself awake. Rule 1, Evan said, voice low so he wouldn't wake Maya, we don't touch his work systems. You copy only what he's tied to personally, his iCloud, Gmail, shared notes, anything he used lazily because it was convenient. You create a mirror, not a mess. I'm just a writing instructor, I whispered, half to him, half to myself. Cool, he said. Today you're also a librarian. Librarians don't break things. They preserve. He'd sent me a list at 2:03 a.m. titled, First Moves, Enodrama. It was cleaner than any syllabus I've ever built. Freeze your credit report. Open a new checking account in your name only. Redirect your paycheck. Change your Apple ID password. Enable advanced data protection, log into the household iMac and archive messages. Export calendars. Screenshots are fine. Timestamps matter. Do not delete anything. Ever. If you think you should, drink water instead. Step 1 took 10 minutes. I placed a fraud alert on my credit file and watched the confirmation email arrive in my new inbox, an address no one knew yet, not even Maya. The message pinged my phone and I felt something unclench in my ribs. A tiny lock clicking into place. Step 2, the credit union 2 blocks from campus opened at 7. I was their first customer, hair in a bun, yesterday's mascara, the silk dress folded into my tote like a retired flag. The banker had a son in my colleague's econ class. He recognized my name and didn't ask questions when I requested a new account and a debit card printed on the spot. Tough morning? He asked gently. Productive, I said. By 7:48 a.m. Payroll at Roosevelt had my new routing number. The secretary in HR, who keeps the peppermint tea, said, "Good for you," in a tone that said more. On the subway home, I read Evan's next bullet like a prayer. Backups don't scream. People do. Let the files talk. Nolan's iCloud lived on the family iMac in the study because he liked the big screen for spreadsheets. The auto login made my stomach turn. He'd insisted on installing it in the shared space so we stay aligned, which meant he could see my calendar reminders to grade papers, and I could see his calendar reminders to win. I plugged in a fresh external drive and started the slow, patient copy, desktop, documents, downloads. Then iCloud Drive, pitch deck V19, Q4 donor dinners, talking points, crisis. That last one opened to a bullet list: if asked about allegations, deny specifics, emphasize growth, pivot to impact. There was a section labeled Lana instead of Lena. I took a breath. Sweat it later. Save it now. Don't get greedy. Evan texted when I sent him a photo of the folder list. You're archiving context, not hunting for a gotcha. Create a directory structure that mirrors his. If a third grader couldn't follow it, it's wrong. I named the top-level folder box of glass. Inside it, calendars, emails, headers only, invoices, photos, notes, texts, machine. In calendars, I exported his Eichel and mine, overlaid. The fundraiser night had 3 blocks on his, color-coded navy, 4:30 p.m. pre-brief, 6 p.m. welcome remarks, 8:20 p.m. VIPs, bar, west wall. On mine, a single reminder in pale yellow, call mom. Birthday. I stared at the contrast until the screen blurred. I moved next to the paper world. Our file cabinet had a chirpy label maker title, Home. Inside were warranties, appliance manuals, a manila folder of events with contracts. I pulled the one for the glass house. The signature line had Nolan's neat block letters. The payment page had my card, authorization in my handwriting. I remembered him sliding it across the island the day he said he was maxed because of vendor holds. We'll switch it back when the deposit's clear, he'd said, already walking to his office. He hadn't switched a thing. I scanned the whole contract to invoices, then left it exactly where I found it, paperclip and all. Librarian, not arsonist. At 10:02 a.m., I emailed the event manager from my new address, tone light, classroom polite. Subject, quick confirmations for my records. Hi S, huge thanks for keeping last night smooth. Accounting is asking me for backup on the remaining balance. Would you mind forwarding the final vendor list and any outstanding invoices attached to my card? Especially the line for Storycraft PR, H. Wilder, so I can match to our reconciliations. Appreciate you, Elena. It took 9 minutes. She sent everything, PDFs, a clean vendor spreadsheet, and a quick note I read twice. Also attaching the talking points draft Harper asked us to print for Nolan. Hope that helps. It helped. The PDF had his handwriting in the margin. If she reacts, make light. Pivot to mission. Do not apologize. I felt something hot rise in my throat and pressed my tongue to my molars until my mouth tasted metallic. Then I saved the file to notes, added the timestamp, and walked away from the desk like I was leaving an argument before it got loud. The first concrete move wasn't a confrontation. It was a paper trail with good lighting. At noon I took the Q to Brighton Beach and met a woman named Cordelia at a corner cafe that sells pierogi and cappuccinos that taste like patience. Cordelia does independent bookkeeping for creatives, which is code for making chaos behave. She was Maya's friend from a previous life. No blazer, no judgment, hair piled high with a pencil through it. She looked at my neatly arranged folder on the table and smiled. You're a teacher, she said, like she'd just solved a riddle. Guilty. What do you want, Elena? Not the feeling, the outcome. I want to stop financing his theater, I said. And I want to be able to prove I didn't imagine any of it when he tells everyone I'm emotional. Cool. She flipped open her laptop. We'll start with a ledger. Line by line. You'll hate it. In a week, you'll love it. For 2 hours, we built categories: personal, me, personal, him, joint, household, events, his, events, mine, business, his, flag only, no downloads. We took the vendor list and highlighted anything that touched my card. We matched it to the PDFs, sent. We added due dates, notes, and a column called story, because Cordelia said numbers don't matter until they tell one. The PR crisis prep lives here, she said, tapping the events column, and the memo calls it rehearsal. That's not crisis management. That's a performance coach. Different animal. She showed me how to pull my bank's monthly CSVs and drop them into the ledger. She made me write the steps down on an index card like I was the one taking her class. When we were done, I had something I hadn't felt in months, a grip. Next, Cordelia said, you send one boring, perfect email that puts the facts in the room and makes everyone behave. I drafted it on the subway home, thumbs flying, teacher brisk. Subject, final charges, Glass House event. Hi Nolan, looping Harper so we're aligned. For my records, confirming the following charges on my personal card related to last night's event. AV/TED balance, $80XX. XX, attached invoice. Storycraft PR Consulting, $6,500, attached invoice. Memo indicates messaging rehearsal plus crisis prep. Florals overage, $12XX. XX, attached. Please confirm transfer to my account by end of day Friday so I can reconcile. Thanks. I read it 3 times to sand off any emotion. I attached the PDFs. I CC'd no one I couldn't defend in court. Then I pressed send and watched the little paper airplane leave the screen like a quiet dare. Nolan replied 12 minutes later from his phone, we'll discuss at home. Don't loop vendors on internal matters. Harper replied 2 minutes after that, thanks, Elena, received. I'll process reimbursement as requested and confirm transfer timing this afternoon. I stood in my kitchen between the expensive knife block I never touch and the plants I keep alive out of spite, and let the smallest smile happen. Step 1 wasn't glamorous. It was a ledger, a drive, a trio of PDFs sitting like neat bricks where chaos used to be. Not revenge. Not yet. Just gravity, restored. By 9:02 a.m. I was riding an elevator that smelled like lemon polish and new paper, clutching a folder that Cordelia helped me build, the ledger printout, vendor PDFs, calendar exports, a neat index with page numbers like a tiny, stubborn flag. Elizabeth Hart, family and civil, the glass door red. No marble, no view. Just a receptionist with a sweater that looked hand-knit and the kind of calm that makes you breathe slower. Elizabeth wasn't what Nolan would call impressive. No flashy suit. No art that said new money. She wore a navy dress with pockets and read my intake form like it was an x-ray. I have 2 rules, she said, settling in. First, we do facts before feelings. Feelings matter, we'll get there. But facts drive outcomes. Second, we don't start fires we don't intend to put out. Agreed? Agreed. I slid the folder across the desk. She glanced at the index, then the tabs, and the left corner of her mouth lifted like a teacher seeing a well-organized essay. You teach, she said. Yes. Good. Teachers do well in these. You know how to document. She moved through the stack with deliberate care, the Glass House contract showing my card on the hook, Harper's invoice with messaging rehearsal plus crisis prep, the fundraiser seating plan with Nolan's note, keep close but not too close, my email CCING Harper, her prompt reply promising reimbursement. 3 tracks, she said, tapping the desk with a capped pen. 1. Marital. 2. Personal liability and reimbursement. 3. Reputational safety. We keep them separate so he can't muddy water. I sat straighter. Marital first. Are you in danger? She asked without blinking. No physical danger, I said. Just humiliation with excellent catering. Okay. Housing? Joint lease, his name first. We've been in that apartment 2 years. Start a paper trail that it's your home and you contribute. Utility bills, renter's insurance, anything in your name. If he tries to stage a lockout later, contemporaneous proof matters. She sketched boxes on a yellow legal pad. Prenup? I shook my head. No. Then our presumption is equitable distribution, not equal, equitable. What each contributed, what each dissipated. Keep receipts of you covering joint or his business adjacent costs from personal funds. That's dissipation, using marital budget for non-marital purposes. Judges like numbers, not adjectives. She pointed at the Harper invoice. PR for his fund, paid by you, is textbook dissipation. Your ledger is gold here. Next? I asked. Personal reimbursement, she said. We can demand immediate repayment for those identified charges with documentation. Your email already created Exhibit A. If he transfers the money cleanly, good. If he stalls, we escalate with a formal demand letter. Not angry, boring and perfect. You'll begin to see a theme. I smiled despite myself. Boring and perfect. Reputation, she continued, means we anticipate his counter-narrative. My wife is emotional. She's sabotaging my business. She's unstable. We inoculate. You keep a contemporaneous log, dates, times, what was said, who was present. No color commentary, just facts. If he sends threats, you keep them. If he shows up uninvited, you log it. If it turns, we walk next door to the order of protection desk. She leaned back. Now, the tech piece. You mirrored only what you had lawful access to? Yes. Shared iMac autologged to his iCloud. I didn't touch his work systems. Good. Don't. Courts loathe self-help hacking. You're a librarian. Preserve, don't pry. She slid my calendar printouts closer. This is useful in a different way. Pattern. Donor events charged to you. His recurring pre-briefs with the PR consultant. Your birthday flagged as an activation. She tapped the word with her pen. If the campaign was to perform a certain image, your payments underwrite it. That's narrative and number. Judges understand those. I swallowed. He introduced me as his starter wife. Elizabeth's face softened a millimeter. Note it. Who heard? If there's a vendor with a statement, we'll take it. But don't chase witnesses yet. We aren't building a press kit. We're building a file that survives cross-examination. Her paralegal brought water and a form. Circle which applies. Separation, divorce, consultation only. Consultation with contingency, Elizabeth said before I could choose. We don't file anything today unless he escalates. What we do file is a UCC1 equivalent in spirit, your claim for reimbursement. Only we keep it in email and certified mail form for now. I frowned. Certified? Paper that gets signed for, she said. Some men only respect green cards and tracking numbers. She pivoted. What do you want, Lena? Not a speech. An outcome you can write in one sentence. I surprised myself by answering immediately. I want out clean. I want the money I covered back. I want my life back, unhooked from his theater. Good, she said. Here's the plan. She numbered the next page 1 through 6 like a teacher. Notice and demand. Today, we send a formal letter to Nolan, CC, his personal counsel if known, otherwise, to be provided, listing every charge you documented that hit your personal accounts for his event. 36 hours to reimburse by bank transfer. No name calling. Numbers only. Interim boundaries. We propose all future event expenses require joint written consent if your card is used. If he refuses, you revoke authorization with vendors in writing. Evidence locker. We create a secure cloud folder, my office controls, and you drop contemporaneous logs, PDFs, and screenshots. I don't need the whole ocean, just clean buckets. Housing and access. You photograph the apartment contents room by room. Email yourself the photos with subject lines that index the date and area. That becomes baseline inventory. Payroll and mail. You've redirected payroll. Good. Now set up a PO box. All bank and credit statements go there. No more mail went missing. Soft landing. Identify one friend's couch and one hotel you can book same day if he escalates. Cash amount needed, $400. Keep it in an envelope that isn't in your purse. She slid the page to me. Can you live with that? Yes, I said. All of it. Then we draft. Her fingers moved fast over a keyboard older than Nolan would tolerate. The demand letter that bloomed on her monitor was surgical. Dear Mr. Pierce, this letter confirms specific personal charges advanced by Ms. Carter Pierce on 10/ related to your fundraising event at the Glass House. AV/10 balance, $80XX. XX, invoice hashtag, attached. Storycraft PR Consulting, $6,500. 00, invoice hashtag, attached. Memo messaging rehearsal plus crisis prep. Florals overage, $12XX. XX, invoice hashtag, attached. Total due, $15.7XX. XX, please remit payment via bank transfer to account ending, by 5 p.m. Date. Going forward, Ms. Carter Pierce does not consent to use of her personal accounts for your business or promotional expenditures absent prior written approval. We appreciate prompt attention and look forward to resolving this administratively. No heat. All spine. Sign? She asked. I did. My hand didn't shake. Next, Elizabeth said, you'll go home and pack a comm bag, passport, teaching contract, a week of clothes, meds, backup drives. Put it at a friend's. Nolan can think he's the adult in the room. You will actually be the adult in the room. My phone buzzed on cue. Nolan, dinner at 7. We need to align. Do not involve outsiders again. A second later, another, we'll settle the charges. Don't make this bigger than it is. Elizabeth glanced at the screen. He felt the CC, she said. Good. He should. Reply once, from your new email. Thank you for confirming. Please see counsel's letter for amounts and routing. Don't vary from the script. I typed exactly that, then slid the phone face down. Elizabeth stood. Final thing, Harper. If she asks to clear the air, you don't go alone. If you meet, it's in daylight, public, and you treat her like what she is, not an enemy, not a friend, a witness with a job. Ask short, neutral questions. Then you stop talking. On my way out, the receptionist handed me a manila envelope. Inside, 3 copies of the letter, 2 stamped certified mail slips, a checklist titled Week 1, and a small card with Elizabeth's after-hours number written in fountain pen. Counsel, not drama, Elizabeth said, walking me to the elevator. I touched my mother's opal, a reflex now, and felt the tiny cool stone like a yes. The elevator opened. My phone buzzed again. This time it was an unknown number. Hi, Lena, it's Harper Wilder. Can we grab 10 minutes today? Off the record. I think you should know what your husband rehearsed. I stared at the lobby's tile until it steadied. Text a location, I said. Daylight. Public. I picked the table by the window on purpose, bright, noisy, hard to stage anything dramatic. The cafe smelled like oranges and steam. Mothers with strollers, a student editing on a cracked MacBook, a barista drawing a leaf in foam like the world wasn't wobbling. Harper arrived in a slate blazer and white sneakers, hair in a low knot, no jewelry. She looked like a person who'd calculated how to be unremarkable. She set her phone face down and didn't reach for my hand. Thank you for meeting, she said. Professional, neutral. Elizabeth's voice in my head, short, neutral questions. Stop talking. Why did Nolan hire you? I asked. 2 reasons, she said, and I could tell she'd practiced talking like this, clean, measured. 1. To build a donor-facing narrative for the fund's impact program. 2. To prepare for a potential story he believed might surface. What story? A junior analyst at the fund filed an internal memo about metrics inflation on a pilot project, she said. The memo leaked to a reporter at the Ledger, a business desk kid named Leo Park. Leo started calling around 3 weeks ago. I got a tip from a comms friend. Nolan retained me 2 days later. Metrics inflation, I repeated. No adjectives. Explain. They promised a city school district they'd outfit 200 students with refurbished laptops and mentorship hours. The press release says 200 empowered learners. The procurement log shows 86 laptops delivered, and half went to a partner NGO's office inventory. Mentorship hours were counted if a founder spent time on Zoom with a donor's kid. It's not illegal. It's misleading. Who wrote the release? Nolan's partner, she said. But Nolan approved the copy. He also workshopped a quote with me. In less than a year, we doubled digital access for under-resourced students. Doubling, in this case, included counting promised devices as delivered. I let the barista's grinder fill the pause. And the crisis prep? I asked. She looked at her hands. I run on cameras. I poke holes. I ask the worst version of the question so clients don't fall apart on TV. Nolan wanted more than that. He wanted rehearsal. For what? She slid an envelope across the table. Inside, a printed deck, my husband's words dressed like a suit. A cover page, Q4 messaging, resilience and family. Then bullets. If allegations surface, frame as noise from competitors, one said. Another, humanize, talk about marriage challenges, how Elena's sensitivity made work-home balance complex. My name in quotes, and then, example line, we all make mistakes. We all grow. The page after that was a mock Q&A. Question, you build donors for support programs that never materialized. Why? Answer, scripted. We piloted quickly. Some activations didn't land. We've learned and tightened controls. As for my home life, it's been a tough year. Elena's been under stress. We're working through it as a family. I felt the old heat surge, then let the hinge swing closed. Facts before feelings. He planned to use me as a prop. He planned to pivot to you, she said. Not smear. Soften. He wanted a foil, someone to show he's juggling. I told him not to. I told him it read as blame. I tapped the deck with one finger. The toast. Harper's expression changed, a tiny fracture, something like shame. The starter wife line wasn't in the deck. Off-script bravado to make a table of men laugh. But he rehearsed a version of that cruelty, testing what he could get away with. What else did he rehearse? I asked. She took a breath that landed somewhere hard. He asked for a page labeled Elena, background, talking points. I refused to write it. He wrote it himself. She slid another sheet. Notes, she shops at discount chains, relatable. Adjunct, small salary, loves her kids. Sometimes overwhelmed. Family, blue-collar sister. Plays well with donors if given direction. Something inside me clicked again, another cold, steady click I'd come to recognize as the opposite of breaking. I put the page into my folder. Why are you giving me this? I asked. Because I'm done with men who confuse philanthropy with theater, she said, and the practiced voice cracked just enough to make me believe her. And because, full disclosure, I signed an NDA with his fund, not with him personally. The materials I'm sharing are my notes, not fund property. They're about the speech, not the portfolio. And because I saw your face when he said it. I've been the woman nearby. Elizabeth's next rule in my head, don't make her your friend, make her a witness. Dates, I said. Times. Who was in the room? She nodded, opening the notes app on her phone. Session 1, Tuesday, 3 p.m., his office. Present, Nolan, me, his partner Jacob for 20 minutes, then just Nolan. Session 2, Thursday, 10 a.m., conference room B present, Nolan and me. Rehearsal on stage at venue, Friday, 4 p.m., AV present. She scrolled. He asked me to practice a block called Owning the Mistake Without Owning the Liability. The draft used the word miscommunication 5 times. I said a good reporter would hear that as confession without content. What did he say? I asked. He said, it's not for reporters. It's for donors. Is Leo publishing? I asked. Unless someone kills it, she said. He emailed me 6 questions on background. The one he cares about, how they counted served students. He has procurement logs from the district, I think. He asked for comment by Thursday noon. Did Nolan ask you to contact my HR? I asked. The question surprised us both. She blinked. No. Why? Because I received a friendly inquiry from the dean's office last month about my social media tone after I posted a link to a student food pantry fundraiser. Nolan found the email hilarious. I wondered how many strings he intended to pull. Harper grimaced. He asked me to draft community guidelines for his household accounts. I told him, again, not my scope. I made myself stay with neutral. If Leo publishes, what does Nolan do? He pivots to a we're tightening processes thread and wraps himself in impact stories, she said. He'll roll out a family is everything post, he drafted it. A photo with you, preferably candid, ideally something with the skyline or a school. Caption, grateful for the people who keep me grounded when the noise gets loud. I told him not to use you without permission. He laughed. I wrote, family post, skyline, without consent. Then, would you testify that you warned him not to use me? If compelled, she said. I won't blow up my client list by going on morning shows. But I won't lie. If asked under oath, I will say exactly this. She slid one last item across the table, a small black voice recorder. He insisted I record the rehearsal so he could listen on his commute. I usually don't. He made it a condition. That file lives on my device. I'm not giving you the audio today. I'm telling you it exists and that I will preserve it if counsel requests. Chain of custody matters. Understood. We sat in the small noise of the cafe for a minute. Her latte art had dissolved into a pale swirl. You know he'll say you're vindictive, she said finally. That you're turning a bad joke into a war. He already did, I said. In my kitchen. He said, don't make this bigger than it is. What did you say? Please see counsel's letter for amounts and routing. Harper's mouth tilted. Good line. It's borrowed, I said. From a woman who likes pocketed dresses and certified mail. She tucked stray hair behind her ear. A reporter once told me, on the record is a place, not a feeling. You're going to need to pick that place on purpose. I know where it is, I said, and realized I meant it. We stood. She didn't offer a hug. I didn't either. At the door she paused. Lena, he scheduled something for tonight. 7. Alignment dinner. He asked me to draft a note in case you reacted. Don't react. Use whatever script your lawyer gave you, and if he mentions the family post, say no on the record. On the record, I repeated. Outside, the air felt colder than it should, like the city had turned the thermostat down to see who could stand it. I sent Elizabeth a summary with bullet points. Reporter, Leo Park. Publish window, before Thursday noon. Rehearsal notes, pivot to me, family post without consent. Voice recording exists, witness will preserve. Sessions, Tuesday 3, Thursday 10, Friday 4. Then I dropped Harper's pages into the evidence locker and titled them exactly. Deck, Resilience and Family, Draft, Notes, Elena, Handwritten, Mock Q&A, D3. On the walk home I passed a schoolyard. A kid kicked a deflated soccer ball so earnestly the thing actually lifted. He hooped like he'd won a championship. I thought of Nolan's 86 laptops dressed up as 200. I thought of my students, their cracked phones, their careful essays. I thought of the opals in my ears, warm from my skin. At 6:58 p.m. I set my phone to record on the kitchen counter, open and visible. I placed Elizabeth's letter on the island, next to 2 glasses of water. No candles. No wine. Nolan liked wine when he wanted my yes. The lock clicked. His keys hit the dish like punctuation. He saw the paper, then the phone, and smiled a smile that never touched his eyes. Let's align, he said. Leo called at 8:23 p.m. 3 minutes after I sent a single-sentence text. I can talk tonight if we agree on terms first. I answered on speaker at my kitchen island, phone between the 2 water glasses, Elizabeth's letter still visible like a compass. The city outside our windows hummed like it didn't care if I chose silence or speech. Hi, Lena, Leo Park, The Ledger. Recording? His voice was young but careful, the kind of careful that comes from being told you'll get one big shot and 1,000 tiny ways to ruin it. Not yet, I said. Terms first. Of course. Paper rustled. He'd come prepared. We can do background, deep background, or on the record. Background means I can use the information, attribute to a source with direct knowledge, and I won't use your name unless you later say yes. Deep background means I use it for guidance only. On the record means your name is attached. We can shift as we go. If we say it aloud before the information is shared, he'd emphasized the rule exactly right. I liked him a little for that. Okay, I said. We start on background while I describe documents I personally hold. You can record. If I quote, I'll say on the record first. If I switch, I'll say off. Clear? Crystal. I turned my phone's recorder on and set it face up. Recording, I said, because Elizabeth had warned me never to do anything that sounded like a gotcha. Recording, he echoed, and I could hear him exhale, just a hair. Background, I began. Was married to, Nolan Pierce. He runs the fund you're reporting on. I hold vendor invoices and email correspondence that show a public event last night used my personal accounts to close balances. Those invoices include a PR consultant hired for messaging rehearsal plus crisis prep. The deck associated with that prep included a plan to pivot from allegations about metrics to a family storyline. My name appears in notes as part of that pivot. He didn't jump in the way overeager people do. He let the words sit. Then, can you describe the documents precisely? Invoice from Storycraft PR for $6,500, dated last week, memo, messaging rehearsal plus crisis prep, paid by me, reimbursable. PDF of Q4 messaging, resilience and family with bullet points, deny specifics, emphasize growth, pivot to impact, example line about marriage sensitivity. Another sheet, handwritten, labeled Elena, describing me as discount shopper, adjunct, blue-collar sister, plays well if given direction. I could hear his pen, fast. Do you have timestamps? Yes. File creation and modification dates, plus email headers from the event manager who forwarded the materials. Can you share copies? Not tonight. My counsel is creating a transfer that maintains chain of custody. You'll get them through her office tomorrow morning. Understood. He cleared his throat. For the metrics question, I have a procurement log showing 86 laptops delivered to the district against a claim of 200. I have 3 sources saying mentorship hours counted Zoom calls with donors' children. Does your documentation touch that? Deep background, I said. A line in the deck reads, double digital access for under-resourced students. No backup attached. A PR consultant told me, on the record if compelled, that she cautioned Nolan against conflating promised and delivered devices and against using me as a humanizing pivot. He inhaled through his teeth. She's a good source. She's a decent person, I said. Don't burn her. Noted, he said. I never burn unless a lawyer orders me to throw a match. We sat with the low hum of the dishwasher I'd turned on to keep my hands busy. Somewhere above us, someone's child was practicing scales on a piano, slow and bright. Lena, he said, voice softer, off the record for a second? Off, I said. They're going to make this about you, he said. They're going to say you're angry, vindictive, jealous of the work. If you want anonymity, I can protect that. The story stands without your name. I looked at the 2 water glasses like a coin toss. One for the version of me that kept the door closed and the blinds down. One for the version that opened the window and said the word out loud. Back on, I said. On the record, one quote. Then the rest stays background until counsel delivers documents. A beat. He steadied. Ready. Quote, you don't get to use my salary and my name to cover your numbers. Period. He went very still on the line, the way people do when they hear a sentence they know they'll type twice. Got it, he said quietly. Attribution? Use my maiden name. Elena Carter. My campus already has enough of Nolan's shadow. I'll send verification. He didn't question the ask. Okay, Ms. Carter. My phone lit with a text from Nolan. Dinner. Now. Then another. Answer me or this gets ugly. And a third, inexplicably, a photo from last summer on the High Line, me laughing at something out of frame. Caption, family is everything. Remember? A draft of the post he wanted. A threat in soft focus. Leo heard the chime. Do you need to go? I watched the blue iMessage bubbles evaporate and reform. Background, I said. He's drafting a family is everything post to roll out alongside your story. PR calls it wrapping yourself in the people you can hurt. He exhaled a small laugh that wasn't funny. I'll call his comms. See if they deny before or after they pivot. Another thing, I added. He paid me back today after I CC'd his consultant. Reimbursement for the PR, AV, florals. That will be in my bank by morning. I want that in your notes. He moves when watched. That's a clean sentence, he murmured. It has to be, I said. Clean sentences are what I teach students when they don't know how to hold a room. He let the compliment land without fuss. I'll need corroboration, the PR invoice from you, the deck, your email to him and the consultant, and if possible, a confirmation from the event manager that those talking points existed. You'll have the first three. The manager will do what her boss allows. Don't punish her if she can't go on the record. She already did more than enough. He paused. I don't punish civilians, he said. I write toward power. I felt something unclench in my spine. Good. He shifted to logistics. My editor will want a quote from Nolan. If he denies, we print his denial. If he threatens to sue, legal will scrub every adjective twice. We're aiming to run Thursday morning. That gives me a day to verify and you a night to decide if you want your name up top. You can call me at 2 a.m. and change your mind about attribution. We'll adjust. Thank you. Last thing, he said, and I could hear the rustle of a page turning. You sure you want to do this? I can't promise the internet won't behave like the internet. I can't promise I'll stay small anymore, I said. And I'm tired of handing him my silence. He rehearsed his part. This is mine. Okay, he said. Then we both do the boring, perfect thing. We hung up. The apartment was very quiet, just the dishwasher's hum and the far-off piano, now practicing a scale that tipped briefly minor before finding its way back. Nolan's key scraped the lock at 9:01. Elizabeth's letter sat exactly where I'd left it. My phone, still recording, glowed on the counter. I tucked Leo's number into my pocket like a match I didn't need to strike yet. Family is everything, Nolan said as he stepped inside, voice pitched warm, camera ready. Ready to align? On the record, I said, and slid the letter toward him. The headline fit neatly into the top half of my phone like it had always been waiting there. Impact Fund inflated student metrics. Sources say PR plan included family pivot, the ledger. Leo had written it without adjectives. The body was scaffolding, procurement logs from the district, 86 laptops delivered, internal emails about counting mentorship hours that were really Zoom calls with donors' teenagers, and, clean and in the fourth paragraph, my single sentence with my maiden name. You don't get to use my salary and my name to cover your numbers, said adjunct instructor Elena Carter, who provided invoices and emails confirming a donor event's PR costs were charged to her personal account before reimbursement. No drama. Counsel's office credited. Documents described, not pasted. A line near the end. A PR contractor confirmed on background that she warned Mr. Pierce not to pivot to family or reference his spouse without consent. I stood at my kitchen counter with a spoonful of yogurt I'd stopped halfway to my mouth and the city already muttering outside the window. The reimbursement had hit my account at 6:03 a.m. The subject line on the bank alert read transfer received, which is the most satisfying sentence on earth when you've been the default wallet. Nolan's post went up 6 minutes after the article, a photo of us on the High Line from last summer, my opal catching light, his smile turned slightly toward the lens. Caption, family is everything when the noise gets loud. Proud of the work we do, always room to grow. He disabled comments, then turned them back on when they came in faster than he expected and he needed a show of bravery. Elizabeth texted, screenshot, archived. We told him no. He did it anyway. Good for us, bad for him. My email began to populate like a weather map. Cordelia, ledger's clean. Ledger's cruel, too. In the right way. Proud of you. Log everything today. Maya, the adjunct bullpen is printing copies so they can annotate the syntax. You're a comma splice killer, Queen. Harper, I will confirm the warning if asked under oath. Not doing TV. Holding the rehearsal audio. Don't engage on his post. Leo, board asked me for an updated statement before noon. They want to say we are reviewing practices. I will include their line and your reimbursement timing. The board statement went live an hour later. The fund takes these allegations seriously. We have engaged an independent auditor to review impact reporting and procurement. The rest was white noise that tried to sound like accountability. My phone buzzed with another item, this one from a donor couple who'd been at the glass house. Subject, you were right to speak. The body was 2 lines, we're pausing our pledge until the audit. If you need a statement about the toast, we will provide it. Their signature looked like money had been italicized for years and had finally sat down. At 8:39, the dean's office emailed me an unexpectedly human paragraph. Ms. Carter, we're proud of you for advocating for accuracy and for your boundary setting regarding use of your name. Please let us know if you experience any harassment connected to this story. We'll direct media inquiries to Central Communications. I read it twice, then forwarded it to Elizabeth with a small, shaky smiley face I would never admit to sending. The comments under Nolan's post split like a river, old classmates from his private school writing, "Hold your head high, brother," alongside strangers quoting my sentence back at him. One of my students, Rena with the perfect slanted handwriting, DM'd me privately, "Is this why you taught us the difference between evidence and vibe?" I sent a heart. She replied with a photo of her desk, a borrowed Chromebook, my handout on claims and support, a mug that said "Nevertheless," she graded. Nolan called 3 times. I didn't pick up. At 9:02, he switched to email. Subject, this is reckless. Body, retract your quote. You've humiliated me and jeopardized jobs. We're a family. You didn't have to do this publicly. He CC'd no one but included a line near the bottom, legal will be in touch. Elizabeth, reply once. Boring and perfect. She dictated over text. I stand by my statement and the documents provided through counsel. Any further communication should go through my attorney, Elizabeth Hart. Please refrain from using my image or name in your posts without consent. I pasted it, sent it, and put the phone face down until my pulse returned to a speed a person can live inside. By 10:15, the fund Slack had leaked to a blog I don't read but everyone else does. A screenshot of a partner's message, please refrain from engaging on social media. We are conducting a thorough review with outside counsel. Another, a junior analyst replying in thread with the procurement log and the sentence, you knew. The emergency board meeting happened behind glass somewhere midtown, but you could feel it from here, the hum of a hive realizing its honey was water. Harper texted at 11:02, they're asking who sourced the phrase double digital access. I'm pointing them to the press release's tracked changes. Hold steady. Leo, 5 minutes later, running a second item at 3 p.m., donors pausing, board statement, your non-retraction. You good with Elena Carter declined to retract her statement and referred questions to her counsel? I wrote back, yes. I made tea. Not the nice kind. The cheap kind that tastes like sturdy decisions. Then I opened the evidence locker and dropped in screenshots titled like a librarian, NPIG 8:29 a.m.m, family caption, board statement 9:47 a.m.m, email, NP, this is reckless, 10:02 a.m.m, response. Everything in the bucket, cool and labeled. At noon, I walked to campus for my 12:30 comp section because Thursday is peer workshop day and chaos must be shepherded even when the internet learns your name. The doorman nodded like a tiny bow. The world was doing its morning things. Garbage truck hydraulic size, a preschooler in a puffer coat refusing to hold a hand, someone power walking like their headphones were a court order. Roosevelt's front doors whooshed open and the secretary with the peppermint tin looked at me like she had a button under the desk that dispensed steadiness. You okay? She mouthed. I nodded. She slid the tin across the counter. Take 2. In my classroom, sunlight made the whiteboard look cleaner than it ever is. My students moseyed in, late, loud, alive. Jamal raised his hand before he sat down. Ms. Carter? You want us to pretend like nothing's happening or use it to learn the difference between fact and framing? Door number 2, I said, and the room made that soft, collective laugh that feels like a held breath let out. We talked about claims. We talked about the verb to inflate. We talked about how numbers can be true and dishonest at the same time. We didn't talk about marriages. We talked about scholarship and not being the person who cheats the tally and calls it impact. At 1:17, my phone buzzed in my cardigan pocket, and I ignored it because Andrea was reading a paragraph that finally nailed the transition we'd been working on since September. When the class ended, I checked. A bank alert again, a second transfer from Nolan, this one labeled household, back charges, Q2/Q3, for an amount that made my knees feel briefly theoretical. Elizabeth's text arrived a beat later. He saw the horizon line. He's buying time. We keep the line. You good? I looked up at the clatter of the hallway, lockers, laughter, the peculiar music of a place where people are learning to be people. I thought about the woman in the mirror last Saturday, whispering to a pair of tiny opals that she could do hard things. I thought about my mother's hands fastening them the first time. I touched them now, warm from the day. Yes, I typed. I'm good. Walking home, I passed a newsstand with 3 print copies of the Ledger. I bought one, not to frame, not to wave, just to practice being the sort of person who doesn't flinch when the truth shows up in ink. On the corner, a busker played the violin again, a scale that tipped minor then righted itself like a ship. Upstairs, I opened the apartment door to quiet. No flowers. No apologies. Just space where a performance used to be. I made a sandwich, set the paper on the table, and slid my lettered folder on top of it, box of glass on newsprint, both less dramatic and more final than I expected. The phone rang once more. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Leo's second update pinged my inbox. The board had hired auditors with real teeth. Donors were reassessing. And at the end, the last line I hadn't expected to make me feel anything did. Ms. Carter returned to teach her 12:30 class. The smallest, truest sentence in the piece.